Hello and welcome to Reading the Children's Bible in 365 Stories. Today we're going to be reading Story 12. We just finished up one of the most important stories that came from Genesis chapter 11, which was about people trying to build a tower to reach God and God getting upset with them trying to prove to God that their own value and worth instead of trusting God who says, I already love you, I made you, I know you are amazing. And they were trying to put themselves over God and didn't realize that's what they were doing. So God scattered them and mixed up all their languages. So we start with a brand new set of stories, and it begins in Genesis chapter 11 and 12. The title for this story is God Calls Abraham. Many of Shem's descendants, Shem being one of Noah's three sons, so this is some time way after when they've had many kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, and there's lots of people. Many of Shem's descendants lived in cities on the rich, fertile plain of Mesopotamia. The area today that was known in Bible times as Mesopotamia would be in the country known as Iraq. So some of that region, because of how the rivers flowed and met with the Gulf and stuff there, was a rich, fertile land, and Mesopotamia was there with many cities. In one of the cities, called Ur, lived a man named Abraham. Ur was a fine city. There were merchants and scribes and comfortable houses for rich and wealthy citizens like Abraham. The people worshiped the moon goddess at the beautiful Ziggurat temple. That's not the God of the Bible of the First or Old Testament. That is a different God that the people in that place were worshiping in place of the God who created everything that we read about in the first couple of stories. One day, God spoke to Abraham. He had something very surprising to say. Leave Ur, God said, and set out for a country that I will show you. I will make you great and bless you. I will make you a blessing to all people everywhere. Imagine that. God speaking to you and saying, you need to pack up your whole family and everything and move to an unknown location. At some point, I'll show you where you're going to go, but you need to start packing up and moving, and then I'll let you know where. Can you imagine how hard that was? We moved from Oshkosh to Ripon, and that was not very far, and that still took a lot to do and quite a bit of time. So can you imagine packing up and moving without a set destination to go to, but just moving and waiting for God to guide you on the way? Abraham had to think hard. If he did as God said, he would leave the comfort of city life and have to settle and have no settled home. He would live in a tent, moving from one source of water to the next. Because outside of the sources of water, it was pretty much desert in this part of the world. So it was not an easy thing to do this, and he really had to think hard about it. But Abraham, he did trust God. He trusted him enough to obey him. Abraham told Sarah, his wife, let's pack everything up, all our possessions, and let's get ready to leave Ur and head to where God wants us to go. At first, they stayed at Haran, many miles to the north, until Abraham's older father died. Then Abraham, Sarah, and Lot, their nephew, set off on the journey that would last for the rest of Abraham's life. Abraham and Sarah had no children, but there were many servants and herdsmen belonging to Lot as well as to Abraham. There were sheep and goats and donkeys to carry all of the baggage. They might have even had camels. I don't know, the story doesn't say, but it is possible. And so they would have had shepherds to guide the sheep, and that meant they had a lot of flocks. So Abraham was a pretty well-to-do person to have that many flocks with him, to have shepherds and servants to attend. So he had done really well in his life at this point, and he is packing up everything, all of his comfort and safety, and heading in an unknown direction, trusting in God. Slowly they trekked from one well of spring water to the next, setting up their large black goatskin tents. They were making their way to the country of Canaan, as God told Abraham to do. So they were heading to a foreign land, the land of Canaan, because that's the direction God sent Abraham in. And he was trusting God, even though it was having to pack everything up, haul it for a while. In that time, walking with the herds and everything, maybe in a good full day, they could get somewhere between 15 and 20 miles walking with all of their cattle and stuff. And then they'd have to set everything back up, spend the night, take everything back down, repack it, and start walking again. So it was a long, long journey. That's just like one of my friends, his grandmother, grew up in Philadelphia. And this was a long time ago, and her family decided they wanted to move out west, and they moved out to Montana. And it took between 2 and 3 months traveling by covered wagon and horses to get from Philadelphia to Montana. Can you imagine that, traveling all day long, every day, for almost 2 to 3 months? That's a lot. This is the way that Abraham was traveling. Could only walk so many miles per day, and then they had to unpack everything, eat, sleep, pack it back up, and walk again. Well, here ends this part of the story. Our next section will continue with this story between Abraham and his nephew Lot. Thank you, and have a nice day.